You can tell we're recording, so I'm just letting you guys know that we're going to record today, and we're going to get started with the Booster Budget Challenge Q&A session with our money coach, Kara Stevens.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Great. Thank you for joining us. But before we get going, we're going to talk a little bit about WorkWell NYC and who we are. We are your worksite wellness agency, basically. We help you move more. You may have heard of our STEP challenge. Eat better. We have healthy eating webinars with nutritionists and our beautiful ladies that stand in the kitchen and make all sorts of good things. We promote primary care and prevention with Take Action. Also encourage people to be well. Mental well-being and resilience is important to our whole person. And finally, we have Project Build. Health equity is what we're always striving for. All right, so financial wellness and health. Well, wellness is holistic and encompasses more than just eating healthy. So where do you fall on this scale? This is the 8 dimensions of wellness. But data shows that people who experience financial or economic hardship may have worse physical and mental health outcomes. So that's why we're here today. We hope today's session supports your financial empowerment journey. We have a lot of city benefits. If you haven't checked them out, this slide gives live links, which we will share this deck with you later. Retirement pension funds, health benefits, deferred comp, flexible spending accounts, and commuter benefits. And now let me tell you a little bit more about Kara Stevens. She is a former NYC DOE employee who eliminated $65,000 worth of debt while working as a teacher and a school administrator. And now she's an author and founder of the Frugal Feminista. I love that title. A personal finance and development company committed to helping people heal their relationships with money and themselves. Kara is passionate about personal finance and helping others overcome money blocks and personal hurdles on their journey to financial empowerment. Her relatable financial advice has been featured in Forbes, CNN, Business Insider, Huffington Post, The Washington Post, and more. We're thrilled to have Kara Stevens today as our money coach, and she'll guide us through the Booster Budget Challenge, and she's just an expert, and we're going to have fun and answer some questions today. So thank you for coming, Kara.
Thanks again, Heidi. Happy to be here.
Great, great. Well, just before we get into the Q&A, we're going to get into some reminders. Today's session is being recorded, and the recording and resources will be shared with all you guys and everyone else who registered and maybe couldn't come. We will send this out afterwards. Please use the chat feature to share comments or the Q&A button to submit a question. You guys, unfortunately, today are not able to unmute, but please provide your questions if you have them. If your question wasn't answered today, please refer to our resources and that we will share at the end of the session for more individualized support and assistance. All right, now we're going to launch in the Q&A. Kara, do you want to say a few words before I throw you the first question also?
Yes, I just want us to really understand that while we have such a short period of time together, that the information I'm offering is not individualized, personalized financial advice. This is just financial information and best steps to help you make the best decision for your finances in this season of your life. I just want to put that out there as just a reminder of your personal power, but also to offer some context for how we can be able to support you in our session today.
Thank you, Kara. So the first question we have is on budgeting. How do I know if I'm saving enough for buying a home or saving for retirement or saving for my child's college fund, paying off debt, etc.? How do we know that?
That's a great question. I think it's first understanding what your numbers are. So how much exactly is the cost of tuition, or how much is the cost of the home or the down payment of the home? And what is your timeline as a second understanding or factor? When you have these two sets of information coupled with how much money do you have already saved for that goal, you'll be able to have a clearer understanding of if you have enough money for reaching that goal in a particular amount of time. So let's give an example. Let's just say it costs $100,000 for your child to go to college, and that is in 10 years. And similar to the video we talked about creating SMART goals, if we divide that 100,000 by 10 years, that's about 10 years worth of time in order to be prepared for that particular goal. And if you have milestones in between, like we need in 5 years, we have to reach $50,000, then you're able to break up that goal into even smaller pieces. And in thinking also about the other competing financial goals that you may have at that time. So in addition to maybe working towards a college tuition goal, you also have a goal to be able to buy a home. I think it's also important to prioritize which one may come first or what percentage of each goal will be met at a certain time. So say, for example, if the 10-year mark for your for getting your child into college is 10 years versus the down payment for a home being 5 years, are there other sources of support that can be used for both in order for you to meet the majority of that goal?
Great, thank you. The next question is also about budgeting, and it's what should I consider when adjusting my budget due to a life change, like getting married or divorced, having a baby, retiring within a year, within 10 years?
I think it's important when it comes to adjusting is to identify what exactly are your costs at 3 different levels. All of us know Oprah, and we all know when she talks about living your best life. What does a budget look like when you're living your best life? Like, what does it cost to have all the things, all of your needs met and most of your wants met? That's the high level budget. The mid-level budget is where all of your needs met and some of your wants are met. And then there's the bare bones budget where all of your needs are met and very minimal parts of your wants are met. I think when you are able to actually write down those numbers and have a clear understanding of what that bottom line number is, you'll be able to adjust to shifts in income. I think it's also important to understand that when it comes to adjusting, if you haven't had the history of tracking how much you spend, it's really important that you have a clear understanding of what your actual trends are when it comes to money, because some months may fare differently than others. So when thinking about how do I exactly find an accurate amount of money that comes into my budget, or how much do I spend every month, it may be a good idea to track between 1 to 3 months just to get a gauge of what exactly those expenses are and what those patterns are. And I would also say, finally, from an emotional perspective, with these adjustments, whether it be something great like maybe an addition to the family, or something that may not be something you are happy about, like a divorce, it's really important to understand emotionally, how will you be able to add elements of joy into your budget, elements of celebration into your budget, to ensure that there is at least some opportunity for play and pleasure while you're adjusting to those dips in life.
Yeah. And I just want to add one thing. It's also interesting how many free things you can find to enjoy in New York City. It's a great city to live in. Thank you. Investing. These are great questions about investing. Someone asks, how can I start investing? How do I decide how much money to set aside for investing?
So I think one of the benefits of being a city employee, and I can speak from experience, is that we have a robust retirement system for those that have access to pensions, and those for us that have TDAs or 403Bs or whatever it is the opportunities are for retirement. I think we have to begin to look at what the lowest hanging fruit is at our fingertips. And for those of us who think of investing as something that requires us to go outside of our employer, we need to reframe that thinking, that the first place that we can begin to invest and to begin to have a support system when investing is in our backyard with our HR representatives, with our support systems. So the first thing is to, one, find out what the opportunities are first as a part of the city employee system. Two, when it comes to identifying, well, how much can you put away or how much can you afford to, that's very much an um, individualized answer. But what I will say to that is that first you have to know what your numbers are. This may sound repetitive, but it's a baseline for all things. You have to know your personal data. So if you're able to look at your check that comes in every 2 weeks, and after all deductions have been taken away, and you're able to then attend to um, your personal cost in terms of expenses, you're then able to see how much can you begin to actually put away for investing. A rule of thumb to begin with is if you tend to have a tight budget, start with 1 to 2% of deductions being taken for your retirement right away, right? 1 to 2%, you can barely feel it. And then every 6 months, bump it up a percent or two until you begin to see that you have a level of comfort that allows you to move more money around for you to even add more to your retirement. Outside of retirement, the idea is after I've been able to put away money for retirement, the idea of looking for money to invest comes from how much money can I actually save to meet my needs and meet my basic expenses, and then whatever is left over after I met my savings goals and my household expense goals, that I'm able to put money away toward investing, right? And when investing comes in, there are things like index funds, which are a bundle of stocks, um, bonds, a mixture of ownership in various companies instead of ownership in, say, one like a stock, that allows you to take a basket of companies and be part owners in those. So if you're thinking about investing and after you've been able to invest for retirement, think about investing and looking at things like possibly index funds and ETFs, which also kind of they trade like stock. They trade on the stock market, but they're basically index funds at a lower cost. And those two alone will allow you to have ownership of companies that are high performing, especially if you do like an S&P Standard and Poor 500 index fund, which just basically is an index fund that tracks what's happening on the Standard and Poor index, which just takes into account the largest high performing 500 companies across the country, sees how they're doing. You purchase an index fund like that or an ETF like that, you're able to have ownership of those companies without purchasing each company that's in that bundle.
Got it. So a quick clarification here. You're saying ownership of companies. Can you just quickly explain what that is, or what, like when you buy a stock, do you really own a part of that company? Can you clarify that?
So yeah, so when it comes to a stock, a stock is partial ownership. You're able to buy into receiving dividends for investing in that company, right? So when you actually purchase a stock or purchase an index fund or purchase an ETF, you're purchasing fractional ownership, partial ownership into how that company, investing in that company. So when it creates profits and you receive the dividends, you're able to benefit because you've invested in that company.
Great, thank you. And so dividends are like interest, right? So
dividends, the dividends is the profit that comes from that's shared out as a result of profitability in the company.
Got it. So it's profit sharing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that. The second question is, maybe you've already touched on this, but what's the difference between stocks, bonds, funds, and how do they vary in the amount of risk associated with each?
Mm-hmm. So I touched on this a second ago, but stocks, I didn't touch on this part. Stocks are the riskiest type of asset class because you're remember this idea of putting all of your eggs into one basket. So when you have a stock, you're putting money into the purchase of and investing into one company, right? versus if you have mutual funds or index funds, you're purchasing a basket, and in that basket are several companies in that basket. So that spreads the risk in terms of, say, in that bundle or in that basket, you have stocks in tech, or on the other hand, you have, say, stocks in agriculture. But say agriculture goes up, but the tech stocks go down, your overall performance of that index fund may not be as disastrous because of a dip in one sector versus having an increase in another, meaning that it may balance out. Versus if you only had stock in one particular company, you will see when that company goes down, your profit goes down, or the value of that share goes down. So when you purchase into a company, you're purchasing shares, right? And into these shares allows you to have that amount of ownership into that company. So that's that. So when it comes to bonds are a safer, more conservative approach to investing as an asset class. And when it comes to how do you begin to balance those, or which ones should you include in your portfolio, there are a lot of factors that you'd have to consider. One is your risk tolerance. Risk tolerance means how well can I sleep at night, knowing that I may see lots of fluctuations in the value of my portfolio, and your portfolio being how much value each of the assets you've purchased add up to at the end of the day. How well can I sleep at night if I see dips in my portfolio on a daily basis, because my overall asset allocation is geared more toward riskier assets like stocks versus bonds, or even index funds, which allow you to diversify. So to answer your question, thinking about how can I know myself, my risk tolerance, how close am I to retirement? For those of us that are younger and beginning in the workforce, having an asset allocation where your portfolio has more stocks than, say, bonds or index funds, it may work for you, one, because you're younger, and two, because you have that time to risk the ups and downs and the fluctuations of the market, because you would be in the workforce longer, right? So that's the second thing you may want to consider. And third, I think it's also important to think about identifying to what extent do you want to support companies that may be more sustainable, eco-friendly, which are more values-based, right? Those tend to have steady returns, but may not be as high returns as companies that may not have those types of conditions around how they earn their profitability. When thinking about what you want to do in terms of how do you choose, how do you keep, and how long you keep them for in your portfolio.
Great, thank you. So just to recap, stocks the most risky, bonds the least risky, right? And then funds in the middle.
Yeah.
Or ETF. Okay, thank you. Next question is, what are the pros and cons of managing investments yourself versus managing your funds using a professional?
Well, there are a lot of pros and cons. It also all starts with the individual. When it comes to working and having your funds, kind of managing them yourself, self-management, the benefits of that, you have 100% control over what happens with your portfolio. You're able to not have to pay any fees attached to managing your portfolio. And overall, there's a sense of pride, especially if there's actual growth in your portfolio that comes with managing or self-managing your portfolio. And oftentimes, quite frankly, there are lots of studies that show that people who have self-managed versus professionally managed portfolios sometimes do just as well as those that are professionally managed versus self-managed. So oftentimes we think that a professional may know more than we do, but sometimes the response or the solution to that is to buy things like index funds that track a large index, like the S&P 500. So you purchase an index fund like that, and you go to any of those brokerages that sell them. I'm not going to mention the names because I want to make sure I separate, what we do as part of a city employee agency versus what's out there. But going to any of those large brokerage investment companies and opening up a brokerage account and purchasing an index fund that is attached to a particular NASDAQ or like a S&P 500, you can leave those things by themselves because they're often self-regulating. Like the indices kind of they correct themselves. So if you're not the criteria for being on these indices are maintained, and if the companies aren't able to stay within those parameters, they drop from those lists. So it's kind of like a self-regulating index. So purchasing index funds related to indices is a great strategy for someone that self-manages but doesn't want to spend most of their time looking at their portfolio. The benefit, on the other hand, of having someone who is a professional is that, one, you may not procrastinate as much. For those of us that say we want to self-manage but have problems with time management, getting started, and not having a thought partner in the process of identifying what are my goals, how long should I keep this, how long should I be in the market, what industry should I be made aware of. It's helpful to have a thought partner there. The second thing with having a professional is that you actually are able to maybe tap into information and resources that you alone, because you have a 9 to 5, will not be able to do because you're out there living your life. The other thing too is that over the course of the life of your portfolio, even fee only professionals, those are like certified financial planners who are fiduciaries, who are supposed to put the best interests of their clients at first. They take a chunk of a percentage of your portfolio over the years. Now, given the idea of having someone take, say, 1%, which is the usually like an annual percentage, and the typical amount that a fee only financial advisor may take, versus you not starting to invest, is debatable if that's necessarily a bad thing. But if you know you're someone that's going to be on point, that's going to start and follow through and keep your investments going, maybe getting a professional to support you, maybe something you may want to do in the beginning, but also you can kind of transition to managing it yourself. So it's not an either or answer to answer your question. You can start as someone that self-manages and then gets support, or you can start with someone that gets support, and then once you get the hang of it, you can self-manage. And it's also important to know with the DOE, that's what I was a part of in any city agency. When you have your retirement fund, it's being managed for you. You're not there managing it. You just check to make sure that the money is being allocated to it each month. So you can see if you're already part of the retirement system with the city, you can already experience the benefits of having something that's managed for you.
Right. Thank you. The next part is going to be fun for all of us. It's about debt. So I'm going to read this first question, and then we're going to kind of wrap it up. I know we didn't have a lot of time here, but the first question is, what do I do if I'm struggling to make minimum credit card or loan payments?
Can you repeat the question?
What can I do if I'm struggling to make the minimum credit card or loan payments?
Okay. That's a great question. If you are struggling to make the minimum payments, I would do a couple of things. First, I would define what struggling means. Is it that you can't find the money, or the money doesn't come easily? Because if you're in debt, the debt elimination process is going to require you to get creative, right? So if on your 9 to 5 income, one, you're not able to find money, I would say, what are some skills that you have to start a side hustle? That's one. Second is, I would think about things that I have purchased but haven't used that I can resell for an X amount of money. So if the debt that you're looking to repay, the minimum amount that you're looking to repay is say $50, I would find things in my home that we know we all have that I can resell, right? And I would also go back into my budget after I've tracked for a while to see, are there things in my budget that are duplicates and triplicates that I can eliminate or streamline to find a certain amount of money? So if I were to challenge you in certain like the boost your budget challenge, if I were to challenge you to find $500, I want you to answer in the comment section, what are some ways you can find $500 both in your home and in your budget and with the side hustle, right? And then once you start to think like that, you'll be able to be creative and find the money in various ways. So the 500 may not come just from your budget. It may come 200 there. And then you may sell something and get 75 there. And you may find another 200 there over the course of 1 or 2 months, right? So I think it's, how can I have a problem solving approach and solution to debt elimination to help me get to that minimum balance, right? That's one thing. The second thing is I would stop digging myself deeper into debt. And that means leaving the credit cards at home, putting them in the freezer, giving them to a friend or an auntie or a closet that you'll never find your way out of, so you will not go and resort to using your credit card, and then moving to a cash only system. Right? So when it comes to thinking about what are the areas that I find myself spending more on, what can I do to find money just by using what I have and taking that money and immediately putting it towards debt? So I would say those particular tips or next steps emotionally and then strategically can help you find the minimum for that debt or for that loan.
Thank you. That's a really good idea. I love the way you explained that. That's excellent. Well, it's 12:27. We have 3 minutes. Carrie, you want to give us a quick recap of what we talked about today?
Yes, we went through a whole journey, guys. I know there was more that you probably wanted to get to because I see so many of the great questions in the chat, but we started off talking definitely about how do I begin to basically know my numbers, right? When it comes to budgeting, when it comes to knowing what my goal is and how do I work backwards in order to achieve a certain financial milestones at the high level and at the milestone level. We then kind of moved into how do I begin to see myself as an investor already by looking at retirement in a new eye or with a new lens. Retirement is the first, as a city employee, the first and the easiest way to see yourself as an investor. So if you are already investing with the DOE, we're not really saving for retirement, guys. We're investing for retirement. So give yourself a pat on the back, number one, for if you have a retirement plan with the DOE or with any city agency, that you are, number one, an investor. And then two, thinking about small ways to increase your allocation so it doesn't feel like you're unable to meet your needs outside of preparing for the future. And then we moved into the nuts and bolts of investing. What is an investment? What are the various asset classes? What makes the best sense for me given my age, my tolerance level for risk, and also even my values as an investor and as a citizen. And then finally, we kind of rounded out our conversation around how do I begin to eliminate debt so I'm able to save up money to invest more, to save more, to budget in a way that allows me to have a lot more fun, a lot more goals met, and definitely all of my needs met. And so what I'm offering you guys is just a little taste of the financial wellness that is definitely out there for you as you take this information and you implement it. And one of the best ways to begin to implement it is to, one, start tracking your expenses. And there was some people that asked, where can I track my expenses? You can track it with an old school pen and paper, or you can use resources. There are resources on sites like Magnify Money that can give you some directions on where to track your expenses. And moving forward, get serious about finding at least $500 in your budget to free yourself up to pay off that debt.
Great. Thank you so much. This has been so informative. And I love the way you frame everything. It just makes it so easy.
It's easier than you think.
We're all going to walk away from this. I got to figure this out. I don't like looking at my expenses and my budget. It scares me. And for so many years, I was like, ugh. But anyway, it's all good now. So guys, this is great. Can we move the slide? I think the next slide. Our additional resources. Lots of additional resources here. We're going to send you the deck. I know we're running low on time, so I won't read this whole thing. Next slide, please. And this is our poll for today. Please fill it out while I read a few more slides to you. It's going to launch in a few minutes or maybe a minute. From a scale of 1 to 5, please rate us. How did we do today? All right, here it is. Hopefully you can see it, and you are going to fill it out while I read the events. So the next events we have coming up, we have a block party on September 18th and DCAS under the arches. It's going to be so much fun, guys, from 12 to 2. Please consider joining us. September 19th, we have Back to the Grind, Effective Wellness and Work-Life Balance Strategies from Weight Watchers. And you may know that we get a Weight Watchers discount if that interests you. Fight flu. Fight your flu, get your flu shot. We're going to have work site flu clinics all around the city. So be on the lookout for that. All right, next slide, please. And finally, stay connected with us. Check in with us. Send us an email. Follow us. And here's a way to follow Kara Stevens if you want. She is on Twitter as the Frugal Feminista, Instagram, and Facebook as the Frugal Feminista. So thank you so much, Kara, for joining us today. And thanks to everybody for taking time out to join us.
Thank you for having me. This was amazing.
Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care.